Assalamu alaikum. My name is Jahazib Ali Khan, and today I'm going to be your instructor for this past paper session. Today we are going to be solving the February-March 2026 paper for IGCSE Biology 0610, the extended version. And let's get started. So here we have the first question is the features of an organism are used to classify them into one of five kingdoms. One of them is Kingdom Animalia, name two other kingdoms. It's very simple. Kingdom Plantae and Panja. You would have also gone with Productus or one of the other kingdoms. Moving ahead. Uh, sure. So we've got a group of animals. Wait, did I miss something up here? Yeah. True to all organisms in the animal kingdom. So their cells have a cell wall. No. We're only supposed to take right. They don't have a cell wall. They do have lungs. Actually, not all of them. See, within the kingdom Animalia, we've got animals such as fish that do not have lungs, they have gills. So this is wrong too. Both of these are wrong. They are multicellular for sure. They are vertebrates. No, we've also got invertebrates. So no. They obtain their energy by consuming other organisms. Yes, all animals are consumers. None of them are producers. This is correct. And then they respire. Of course. No animals photosynthesize. Moving ahead. On the figure 1.1, draw an X identifier base. Okay, so here we've got a DNA structure, right? And we can tell that this is a pentose, five-sided sugar ring, pentose. This is a phosphate group, phosphate, pentose. And then this is our nitrogen base. It could be adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, and purines and pyrimidines, basically. So this is our base X. Okay. DNA is made from four different bases, just as we've discussed right now. Base G is one of these bases. State the letters of the other three bases and state which bases pair together. Okay, so let's see. Adenine for A, thymine, and we've got cytosine. So adenine pairs with thymine, and cytosine with guanine. Okay, let's place it a little backward, right? I hope I'm still audible though. Wait, wait, yeah. Let's move ahead. Evolutionary relationship between several species of cat, where near sequences interpreted from left to right. Each branch shows the point at which a new species was formed. Okay, so here we've got this chain, and we have to determine which species has the closest base sequence to the Felidian system. Okay, so see, this is very simple. We only have to look for the species that is directly descending from this ancestor, right? And there's only one species, that is the clouded leopard. All of these species, the snow leopard, the jaguar, the lion, the leopard, the tiger, they've all got descendants in between, right? So the clouded leopard is the closest when it comes to DNA nursing. Okay. Which two species are most closely related? Okay, so if you look up here, you will see that the lion and the tiger, they've got the most recent common ancestor, right? So they're bound to be the most closely related. the first nine lines. See, you'll get 1 mark for this identification, and you'll get 1 mark for the explanation. Okay, let's move ahead. Okay, this figure shows a photomicrograph of an animal cell. We know this is an animal cell, and they pointed out the ribosomes. A here is the cell membrane. The membrane. B is see these filaments protruding inside. These are structures only found inside a mitochondria of the cell. Okay, so B is the mitochondria. And C will see the cytoplasm, right? C for cytoplasm. It's nothing specific. And I'm assuming that the letter D here represents the nucleus. Or if it does. So cell membrane. Cell membrane was letter A. And the nucleus is letter D. Mitochondria and describes the function. Okay. So the mitochondria was the letter B, if I'm correct. And well, the function of the mitochondria, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. You've heard this line 100 times. So how to describe it? Okay, so mitochondria provides energy. So, right? Are we correct? Up to here. So, yeah. Okay, so moving ahead. Okay, the cell contains ribosomes. State the function of ribosomes. Okay, so you can simply say translation, or you can say the assembly of amino acids, or you can just say it makes proteins, right? So let's keep it simple. We'll just say ribosomes make proteins. They make proteins. Or translation. Translation of what? Of M. Yeah. Okay. This might be a bit above your level, but this is going to suffice. Okay, this will be enough. Magnification of the photomicrograph is 18,000. Street the other measurement needed to calculate the actual size. Okay, so to calculate the actual size, you need to know what the size of the image, right? Image size divided by magnification would be the actual size. And we're done with question 1. That was fast. Question 2. A scientist investigates the effect of temperature on the rate of photosynthesis in 3 plant species. The results are shown in the graph. Okay, we got species 1, 2, and 3 here. Let's see what they're asking of us. At the maximum rate of photosynthesis, species 1 makes 15 grams of carbohydrate per day. Use the figure to calculate the mass of carbohydrate made by species 1 at 0 degrees. Okay, so As we can see that for species 1, at maximal production, we are producing how many? 15 grams of carbohydrate, okay? And at, let's say this at 0 degrees, right? Well, at 0 degrees, seems to me that we'll be around, yeah, wait. So at 0 degrees, we'll be around here. And this is 82, 84, and a little above it. So I'd say 85. 85%. Okay. This y-axis, it represents the rate of photosynthesis or the percentage of maximum. And we know that at 100%, we're producing 15 grams of carbohydrates. Okay. So to show the working, at 100%, we've got 15%, 15 grams, right? So, and at 0 degrees, we're producing 85% of the maximum. 85% of the maximum, that is 15 grams. So 85 on 100 into 15. And from here, if you calculate, you can use a calculator. I like simplifying myself, but you're going to get something around 17 on 4 multiplied by 3. And this is equal to 12.75 grams. I'm great in maths as well. Okay, they've given us the unit here. If they hadn't, we would have been required to mention it. The scientists formed several conclusions, take all the conclusions that are supported by the data. At every temperature, species 3 has a greater rate than species 1. For this, we'll have to look at the gradient. Okay. So, species 1 has a much steeper gradient than species 3. Right? You can calculate if you want to, but it is quite visible for me. So, that statement is most certainly incorrect. We are not going to take care. Species 1 has a rate of at least 50% of the maximum over a temperature range of 23 degrees centigrade. Okay, so let's go back to the graph. I'm going to juice up a lot of my time, right? So, where was my pen? Okay, here's 23 degrees. And if I go from up here, for species 1, we're somewhere around here, right? Species 1. This is definitely below 50%. So we aren't going to pick here either, right? Right. 3 degrees and okay, and species 2 has a greater rate of photosynthesis than species 1. Again, let's go back to the gradients. What's the last? Species 3 has a higher optimum temperature than species 1. Okay, this is for sure correct, right? We know this is correct because species 3 was thriving at a much higher temperature. And let's see for species 1 and 2. Okay, I can see that the gradient is still steeper for species 1, right? Over all ranges. So species 2 does not have a greater rate of photosynthesis. I would say that only the last option is correct here. Something is wrong. Let me check. Anyway, moving forward, we can get back to this later. Use figure 2.1 to describe and explain the effect of temperature and the rate of photosynthesis of species 1. If you watch my short, you know exactly the answer to this. Okay, help me write it here. Okay, for species 1, increasing the temperature up to 5 degrees centigrade increases the rate of reaction. However, beyond reaching zero at 30 degrees. Hence, the enzymes in species one have optimum temperature, optimum working temperature of 5 degrees. Oh, up, well, yeah. Flame increases frequency of successful collisions. This is very important. Successful collisions. Beyond this point, beyond this point, brief denaturation of the zymatic active site. Active site and the rate of reaction falls. Oh yeah, let's move ahead. They have a lot out of me. Balanced chemical equation for photosynthesis. This is very simple. You should be able to do this yourself. Okay, so it's the exact opposite of the equation for respiration. Here we've got 6 molecules of H2O added to 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, producing 6 molecules of oxygen and 1 molecule of glucose, C6H12O6, perfectly balanced under the effect of what? Light. Explain why magnesium ions are required for photosynthesis. Okay, so magnesium, if you remember correctly, is a component of chlorophyll. And what is the role of chlorophyll? Chlorophyll converts light energy into chemical energy for the process of photosynthesis. Okay. The carbohydrate made during photosynthesis made in larger carbohydrates with specific functions. Okay. So starch is the storage molecule. So energy storage. Cellulose is for cell walls. So cell walls. And here we have translocated in the phloem. Okay, so sucrose is the transport molecule, transport sugar of the plant. Sucrose. We're done this question 2 here. I hope so. Yeah. So three types of blood vessels in the human body. The blood is coming in here in this direction and it's exiting from here. This is a capillary bed. Okay. And if the blood is coming in from here, it must be an artery. And this must be the vein. Let's see what they're asking of us. J and K. Well, J was an artery. You've done this. And K is a vein. At which point is the pressure highest? Okay, we have draw a labeled line. So if you bear with me, if you come with me here, you're gonna see that uh, after going through the capillaries, the pressure is most certainly going to fall, right? Because it breaks up into all those tiny streams, and when they combine, the venous blood pressure is definitely going to be lower. But it is definitely going to be higher in the artery. And the further back we go, the higher up it gets. The closer it is to the heart, the higher the blood pressure is, right? Because imagine for yourself, when the heart pumps the blood, at that point within the heart or within the aorta, the blood pressure is going to be the highest. And as it moves further away from the heart, the blood pressure is going to fall gradually. So the further up I go, the higher blood pressure I'm going to observe. So let's say T should be here. Explain how the structure of capillaries is related to their functions. Okay, so capillaries are thin, they've got very thin walls, they're permeable, and they branch into a lot of branches. They've got a huge network of capillary beds, so they can reach everywhere. How am I going to describe this? I'm going to say capillary is the rich branching network that allows mm, everywhere, right? The walls are one cell thick and they're highly permeable and very permeable, allowing easy diffusion of oxygen and nutrients such as, let's say, glucose, right? Easy to remember. This should suffice you. Remember, you do not have to fill out the space, you just have to consider the marks for a question, right? We've got 5 marks for this question, and I'm pretty sure we've covered 5 points. They form a branching network so that the blood reaches everywhere. The walls are one size thick, very permeable, allow easy diffusion of oxygen and nutrients. So we've got plenty of points. White blood cells are one component of blood, name two other components. Okay, very simple. RBCs, red blood cells, and platelets. Oh, lymphocytes are one type of white blood cells. Explain how they work. Okay. So we know what the lymphocytes are one type of RBCs or WBCs. Okay. So lymphocytes they produce antibodies. Lymphocytes that target cells in clumping of clumping and phagocytosis, right? Do both. And phagocytosis. Remember phagocytosis? It is the engulfing of a pathogen by the white blood cells of pathogens, right? They also form memory cells. This is a very important point. Differing long lasting immunity. Or I could be more simple. Keeping it simple gets you points. Playing it safe gets you points. That is another way of saying I'm not sure what the word means. I'm positive, but I'm not positive. We're not missing anything yet. Okay, so a section through the human eye. L is the cornea. Cornea. M is the iris. This is the optic nerve. Optic nerve. This is the yellow spot or the fovea. Okay. Identify a learner. We've done it, right? And we've also done this part at identifying the fovea. L is the cornea. M is the iris. How is the fovea adapted to its function? Okay, so the fovea is the highest density. Red, blue, and green cones, allowing absorption of all wavelengths. Light, right? My pen is almost done. Almost. Okay. So figure 4.2 shows part of the end, the front and side is being a near object. Okay. Uh when viewing a distant object. Okay. So what happens is these ciliary muscles, they're going to relax and the suspensory ligament is going to tighten or become taut. When it becomes taut or when it tightens, use your imagination for a bit. What happens to the lens? This lens, it's thick right now because we're focusing on a nearby object. It'll thin, right? And when it thins, the focal length will drop. So when I'm viewing an object closer to myself, the focal length, instead of this, I'm going to need this. And this can only be achieved if the lens is thin, that it falls in the retina. So see must relax um sensory the lens switches and bends the image falls on the retina. Again, this should suffice for our answer. State the term that describes the ability of the eye. Okay, this is accommodation. Moving ahead, this is going to be question 5. State the eye color of the male and female fruit flies. Okay. Eye color in fruit flies is controlled by some single gene. The alleles are on the X chromosome. This is important, which makes this type of inheritance X linked or sex linked. Fruit flies have red and white eyes. Allele for red is dominant. White is recessive. Smaller. The male XY has a capital R, so the male is a dominant red. The female is recessive white. Identical alleles. Okay, so this is homozygous. For example, our female here is homozygous. Recessive, homozygous recessive. So we have to make a Punnett square, right? Complete the Punnett square and determine the genotypic and phenotypic ratio. Okay, so the male alleles X R Y, female alleles are X R. The offspring are going to get this from the male and this from the female. So X R smaller and smaller. The male offspring only gets the X chromosome from its mother. So you only get the recessive allele and have the recessive phenotype. Same here. And so we've got two females with the dominant allele or the dominant phenotype. And you've got two males with the recessive phenotype. So the phenotypic ratio is 1 is to 1. This type of inheritance is this autosomal inheritance or is this X-linked inheritance? See, it's very simple. The question answers this for itself. Question says right here that the alleles are found on the X chromosome. This is already X-linked, not autosomal. The correct answer here is X-linked, X or X-linked inheritance. The other type is autosomal. Okay, the chromosomes. Here we've got 4 pairs or 8. Okay, we have got to complete the sentence. So fill in the blanks. Oh yeah. See. Contains 4 pairs of chromosomes. A cell with a pair of each type of chromosomes is known as a diploid cell. Before the body cells divide by mitosis, cell division is termed mitosis. The chromosome must dash to maintain the chromosome number in each order cell. To maintain the chromosome number, the chromosomes must replicate. They must make copies of themselves. Okay, we got a food web here. Uh, yeah. Okay, so we've got to identify all of the producers, an organism that only feeds a secondary consumer, an organism that consumes at all three trophic levels. Okay, so for the producers, we've got, if you look here at this food web, you're going to see that the phytoplankton in the hornwort, they aren't feeding on anyone. They're being fed on by first consumers such as loges, the daphnia, the copepods, and these primary consumers, they are going to be fed on by secondary consumers like shrimp, which is going to be fed on by newts. Both of these are going to be consumed by the rainbow trout, which is also going to consume a primary consumer here, the sloach. And this rainbow trout is going to be consumed by the apex predator here, the bald eagle. Okay? Bald eagle. So the producers here, hornwort and phytoplankton. Hornwort. Only if he is a secondary consumer. Okay. If you look here, you'll see that. Okay. So, loach here, it feeds as a primary consumer on the hornwort, and it also feeds as a secondary consumer on daphnia. So, this is not our answer. Rainbow trout, it feeds as a secondary consumer and also as a tertiary consumer here, right? Tertiary consumer, secondary consumer, not rainbow trout either. The bald eagle is the apex predator. The newt is the tertiary consumer. These guys here are the primary consumer. The shrimp is the only secondary consumer we've got here. As not the only creature that acts only as a secondary consumer. So shrimp. Okay. An organism that consumes at 3 different trophic levels. All right. If you see here, as we were talking earlier, I need another pen. You'll see that this guy here, this rainbow trout, it's feeding here on this rainbow trout is feeding on the primary consumer here. It's feeding on the secondary consumer in the form of the shrimp. And it's also feeding on the newt, which feeds on the shrimp. So it's also feeding on the tertiary consumer. All three trophic levels. The answer is rainbow trout. I got to do something about this meeting panel after this meeting. Oh yeah. Also, James have been Rob post by. Right. Okay. So this is the rainbow trout, a food chain containing all six trophic levels. Okay, so here we've got six trophic levels, right? One, uh, let's see, more phytoplankton. They're going to be fed on by the gobipods and the daphnia. These are going to be fed on by the shrimp. Mr. Shrimp. He is going to be fed on by a newt. Newt's going to be fed on by the rainbow trout. Rainbow trout. And it's going to be fed on by the bald eagle. Bald eagle. So we got one, two, three, four, five, and six trophic levels. Done. State one feature of vertebrates found only in amphibians. Okay. So in vertebrates, we've got mammals, we've got reptiles, we've got fish, we've got avians, the birds, we've got amphibians. Okay. And what I can think of is none of the others has moist skin. You would say fish, right? But if you take a fish out of water and leave it in the sun, what happens to its skin? It dries up. But if you take out an amphibian and put it in the sun, does its skin dry? Doesn't. There you have your answer. Correct answer here is moist skin. Humans harvest rainbow trout for food. Use figure 6.1 to explain possible effects of humans harvesting rainbow trout in the population of bald eagles. Okay, so remember the food web. I'm not going up there again, but what happened was the bald eagle was feeding exclusively on the rainbow trout. And imagine I removed that food source. What would happen? The bald eagle has no direct food, and of course, its population would decline. And well, if it's not controlled, it might even go to extinction, right? Or we have to find some other food. That is not happening. So the answer is bald eagles feed exclusively on on by humans. Or by decline in bald eagle populations. Why? Due to scarcity. Food becomes scarce of food. There you have your 2 marks. And on to probably the final question here. Yep, the final question here. Explain why it is more energy efficient for humans to eat crop plants than it is for us to eat rainbow crop. Okay, so what happens is as we move above in the trophic levels, for example, we have a producer, right? And let's say we have a food chain. Okay, let's consider the food where we even have. So if our producer, the phytoplankton, was producing 500 joules of energy, right? The copepods or the daphne or the loach, they consume these 500 joules and they live, they respire, they breathe, they digest, they consume energy, right? They use energy for their life processes. They move, they use the energy. So this energy is lost to the environment. And when the shrimp feeds on the daphne, those 500 joules of energy have already been reduced to, let's say, 300 joules. When the newt feeds on the shrimp, those 500 to 300 have been reduced to 150. When the rainbow trout feeds on the newt, it only gets about 100 joules. And when the bald eagle feeds on the rainbow trout, it gets about 50 joules of energy from the initial 500. That is down to 10%, right? So it is an inefficient consumer compared to consuming producer. How are we going to write it out? Okay, so energy is lost living processes such as respiration, motion, digestion, provides the most amount of energy. I hope all of this made sense. And yeah, so we're probably done with this paper, right? And let's see if we've got anything remaining. Okay, so it seems that we've gone through this paper perfectly, very efficiently. We've covered everything. If you've got any queries, feel free to reach out to me through the WhatsApp community and be sure to join our WhatsApp community from the link in the comments. And best of luck for exams. We've left nothing here. We've gone through everything. So yeah, best of luck. Allah Hafiz.